All right, guys, as per usual, just going to continue with our final review. What we'll do is we'll go over yesterday's assignments. So please, if you haven't done it, please go back and do it before you watch this video. And then we will go into some of the new stuff, kind of the same process we've been going through. Next week, we'll add a couple of different things. We'll do a little bit of work with essays and DBQs and stuff, just from reminders of that. But let's just start. Okay, so it's going to start with Thomas Jefferson. Huge topic, obviously, in this class has been the Louisiana Purchase in many different ways. So, what was the Louisiana Purchase? It was a purchase of the Louisiana Territory by Thomas Jefferson for $15 million from France. Why is the Louisiana Purchase so important for the United States? A lot of reasons. It doubles the size of the country. We get access to the Mississippi River. We get access to the Port of New Orleans. Remember, that was the whole reason why we wanted it. We wanted that port. And then we got the whole thing. Lewis and Clark were two people hired by Thomas Jefferson to go explore a path to the Pacific Ocean and explore what is new in the Louisiana Territory. So what types of rocks, what types of animals, what types of structures are in that area. We need to map it out. President Thomas Jefferson used the implied powers. Implied powers is another word for the elastic clause. Okay, so that is going to be one of his reasons for the purchase of Louisiana Territory. Remember, he was against the National Bank, but when he became president, he was okay with the Louisiana Territory. And this question here, the correct answer is going to be 3. The Kentucky and Virginia resolutions are actually under Adams' presidency, but they throw them in here. That is when, well, let's first start with this. Is probably easier. The Alien and Sedition Acts were 2 acts created by Adams' Congress where they're going to basically stop people from coming into the country illegally. And the Sedition Act stopped people from speaking out against the government. Now, these were acts that were very controversial because they were pretty much against First Amendment rights. Kentucky and Virginia resolutions were resolutions brought up by these 2 states to basically nullify these laws, stop these laws from being followed in Kentucky and Virginia. And this is one of those situations prior to McCulloch versus Maryland, the Supreme Court case, where you were able to do this. Okay, but after that Supreme Court case, states just can't go around canceling laws. But back in 1798, they could. A tariff is a tax on imported goods. This was a huge thing in Hamilton's financial plan. How are tariffs good for the economy? Well, if you are not buying from American products from the country, you're not helping out the taxpayers here. So when you buy from other countries, the tariff money acts like the barrier to help actually the go-between the economy and getting some more money for our government. So if you don't buy from here, the tariff kind of helps offset that cost. Hamilton urged Congress to pass protective tariffs to encourage the growth of correct answers to manufacturing. Okay, if you have a situation in the country where you're getting products from other places, it's going to hurt manufacturing in the country. So this is the way to help that. All right, because people are now going to have to buy from the country. High tariff passed by Congress to affect the United States. It's, again, encourage American manufacturing. 3. We did NAFTA not too long ago. They're going to throw it in now, the North American Free Trade Agreement. We did this under Clinton a couple of weeks ago. What is the correct answer for this one? The correct answer for this one is to 1, participate in the global economy. This is the opposite of a tariff. All right, we want to be now trading with the rest of the world. We have the technology to do it. So that's 1. Most tariffs in the 19th century were intended to what? Correct answer is 3. Raise revenue. You're going to bring in some more money and protect domestic at-home manufacturing. A major reason President Jefferson authorized the Lewis and Clark expedition was to 3, explore routes to the Pacific Ocean. All right, manifest destiny. People's. You guys know this by now. People's right to move westward. Okay, the country wanted to expand. Who was the president under the period of manifest destiny? That would be James K. Polk. He's the manifest destiny president. The correct answer for this one is 3. The correct answer for this one is 1. Because Mexico was in that southwestern area of the present United States, when we moved westward, we moved into areas where Mexico had, such as Texas or Arizona, and we got into a war with them. The Mexican-American War, to be precise. Correct answer here is 2. And this one here in the 1840s, the term manifest destiny was used to, I can't see the questions because the slide's in the way. So we got to give it a second. Correct answer is 4. All right. What was the Indian Removal Act? This was a law by Andrew Jackson, also known as the Trail of Tears. Okay, well, we'll put them together where they're going to remove Native Americans out of certain lands and move them onto reservations. The Trail of Tears was the forced movement of these Native Americans where, the soldiers watched over them to make sure that they left. The spoil system was a system where Andrew Jackson would reward his supporters with jobs if they helped get him elected. Okay. Correct answer for this one is, it's really 3, but it's number 2. And a huge thing that Andrew Jackson did was he did stop, and this is a good thing, you didn't have to be a white male that owned property when you voted. It just needed to basically you just needed to be white male. So this correct answer is 3. I don't know why the numbers get messed up sometimes, but it's this one here. All right, what was the Homestead Act? This was something we learned just prior to the after the Civil War, but it was during the Civil War in 1862. It basically provided land to settlers to move out west, pretty much for free, as long as you could afford the filing fee, the $10 filing fee. You could get some land out there. Based on this poster, how is this land offer different from the land offer in the Homestead Act? This one costs money. Okay, this one costs money. All right, that's a huge difference. The Homestead Act, the mass killing of buffalo, and the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad are most closely associated with. 4, the decline of the Plains Indians. When we started moving out west, we started making the railroads and killing the buffalo. The Plains Indians, the people that lived out in the Great Plains, really struggled. The Homestead Act was important in the growth of the West because the correct answer here is 2. Okay, more people moved out to the Great Plains. And the Homestead Act promote development of Western lands by 3, providing free land to settlers. Okay, they're basically just begging people to move out west. All right. What is sectionalism? Sectionalism is when you're doing what's best for your area of the country and your state more than the rest of the country. And this was a huge reason that, thought mindset that led to the Civil War. What is the Missouri Compromise? We have an equal number of states. Missouri wants to come in as a slave state. They don't want them to unless they carve out Maine as another free state to keep the balance of power equal. Compromise of 1850 we did yesterday, so just go back to your notes on that. From the Compromise of 1850, we got the Fugitive Slave Law, and the Fugitive Slave Law said that any slave who escaped to the North now needed to be sent back to the South. If you don't speak out against that, then you are unfortunately going to be sent to jail, even if you're white and free. Popular sovereignty is people have the power, and this is another way to vote. Okay, so people now are going to vote on if they're going to be a slave state or a free state. That was from the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Who was John Brown? He was an abolitionist, and he did a couple of things. First and foremost, he led riots in Kansas that, during the voting and the popular sovereignty in the state of Kansas. And he also led a raid on Harper's Ferry, Virginia, where him and his sons tried to arm a slave rebellion, but that failed. We saw a video on that. Which problem did these 3 things do? The correct answer is going to be 1, which both these 2 compromises, conflicts between the North and the South, the correct answer here is going to be 1. Okay, how are we going to get states to come in? Are they going to be free or slave? Which statement about the Missouri Compromise is most accurate? The balance between free and slave states was maintained. That is correct. Okay, we went from 11 states free and 11 states slave to 12 and 12. Which term refers to the idea that settlers had the right to decide whether slavery would be legal in their own territory? That would be popular sovereignty. Okay, people got to vote on if they had slavery or not. The principle of popular sovereignty was an important part of that would be 2, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. All right. Who is Dred Scott? He was an African-American man who his master died and he was in free territory, so he sued for his freedom. What happened in the case of Dred Scott versus Sanford? When he sued for his freedom, the Supreme Court ruled basically no African-Americans can bring a suit to court because they're not citizens, which was really bad. And also basically slaves in territories could still be slaves. All right, so he did not win his case for freedom. Lincoln was elected in the year 1860. Most Southern political leaders praised, so the South, their perspective, they praised the Supreme Court decision because correct answer is 4. Slave owners in the territories now had more rights. The Supreme Court decision in Dred Scott v. Sandford was significant because it correct answers 4 ruled that Congress cannot ban slavery in the territories. Okay, so if you're in a territory now, you could have slaves. Why was the Civil War fought? Preserve the Union, end slavery, states' rights. Those are the 3 things. The Union and the Confederacy for this one. The Emancipation Proclamation was a war strategy to allow African Americans to be free from Southern control and come fight for the Union. Habeas corpus is when you are jailed. If you're sent to jail, you need to be given a reason and a charge. They can't just jail you for no reason. Habeas corpus can be suspended during times of crisis. Okay, this was during the Civil War. It can happen when there's riots, so you don't always have it. Who won the Civil War? That would be the Union, hence the no slavery part. Why did Lincoln suspend habeas corpus? Well, the people were rioting because they didn't want to be drafted. So he had to take in a lot of people that were rioting in the streets. That is something that could happen if protests about coronavirus or protests about George Floyd become way over the top. Habeas corpus can be suspended. What were their reasons for victory? Well, the Union had more soldiers. They had the African Americans come fight for them, which helped. They had more technology. They had better president leader. Okay, Lincoln was better than Jefferson Davis. How does the suspending of habeas corpus fit in times of crisis? People are going to lose their rights. Well, people lost their rights. People lost their rights, when Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. So it's just, I don't even know how else to answer that. How did Lincoln and Johnson believe the South should be treated after the Civil War? They should be welcomed back with open arms, which a lot of people disagreed with. They thought they should be punished, but they thought that was the best way to kind of go through it. The Reconstruction Amendments, 13, 14, 15. The Jim Crow laws were the first set of laws that forced segregation within the country. It started within the South. Plessy v. Ferguson enforced segregation in the entire country. Literacy tests were tests that African Americans needed to take if they wanted, or anyone needed to take if they wanted to vote in elections after 1877. Poll taxes were taxes on voting. Poll is for voting. Taxes is money. Grandfather clause basically exempted all white people from taking the poll tax and the literacy test, and forced African Americans to. Basically, if your grandfather was born prior to the Civil War or during the Civil War, you don't have to take the poll tax and literacy test. Well, law ended the Jim Crow policy. This is something we learned about a month ago. This would be the Civil Rights Act of 1964. All right, we had segregation in our country until then. The 14th and 15th Amendments passed during Reconstruction. That would be correct answer is 2, increased individual rights for African Americans. Constitutional amendments adopted during Reconstruction. 1, correct answer, which more action marked the end of Reconstruction in the United States. All right, so at the end of Reconstruction, remember, we had the federal troops in the South ensuring African Americans' freedoms. When Rutherford B. Hayes gets elected, the Compromise of 1877, we're going to have to withdraw the troops from the South. So the correct answer is 3. Before the former Confederate States could be reaffirmed to the Union, plan required them to, they basically had to recognize the 14th Amendment. Okay, that's a tough question. We didn't really go over that so much, so the correct answer is 1. The Supreme Court decision in Plessy v. Ferguson upheld a state law that the correct answer is 3. Okay, racial segregation practices in all of the United States. All right, 2 more. Which generalization can be most accurately drawn from a study of Supreme Court Plessy v. Ferguson and Brown v. Board of Education cases? The Supreme Court has helped to determine policy. Foreign policy, public policy. These 3 things are all going to limit the effectiveness of the number 1. What was the decision in Supreme Court? Racial segregation did not violate the equal protection provision of the 14th Amendment. Literacy tests and poll taxes were often used to 3. Limit voter participation for African Americans. And the Jim Crow laws in the post-Civil War era were attempts by, correct answer is 3. Okay, state and local governments to restrict the freedoms of African Americans. All right, last one, we focus on Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois during the Progressive era a little bit. They both wanted racial equality, but they both, number one, proposed methods for achieving racial equality. Just did it a little bit differently. Correct answer for this one's 1. And which area did the views of Washington and Du Bois most differ? The correct answer is 3. Okay, the speed in which full equality of the races should be achieved. Du Bois wanted it instantly. Washington wanted to have it take more time. All right, and this other one we'll go over starting tomorrow. Okay. So now the next part, if you guys remember, I'm going to take a look at 4 words. Just pause the video at this point. All right. Not the easiest words, especially, some of these are not the easiest. But, pause the video now at this point and then try and, define these words. Why are they important? Why do you need to know them for the regions? And we'll go from there. All right. So hopefully you've unpaused the video at this point. Let's start with census. So a census is a population count that happens every 10 years. Yes, it's 2020. Yes, it is happening this year. If you haven't noticed, if you haven't seen anything out there, I think Cardi B in New York is one of the leaders behind that movement on commercials, which is just kind of interesting. So a count of population every 10 years. And why do we do this? Well, we don't really care, just who is who, but we do care about the numbers of people in states and districts. And this is to determine the representatives in the House of Reps and the Electoral College. Okay, and once the numbers are out, we will look at the how has our House of Representatives changed and how has our Electoral College changed? The War of 1812, the war that everyone always forgets about. It was the second war with Great Britain. And basically it started for a couple of reasons. Britain was arming Native American people, okay, with their weapons. They had an embargo by Britain, and they weren't allowing us to trade throughout the world. They were just treating us not well. We ended up winning, and the world recognized the strength and independence of America. That's all you really need to know. The radical Republicans, they wanted the extreme of Abraham Lincoln. Radical is usually a bad word, but they actually were pretty good people. They wanted to punish the South by keeping troops in the South and passing the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments for African Americans, which was good. They wanted to impeach Andrew Johnson. And then when they got taken out of office or they retired or they were elected, that's when the bad things like the Jim Crow laws and literacy tests started passing. All right, Jacob Riis, we learned during the Progressive era. He was a photojournalist who helped change society. He wrote a book called How the Other Half Lives. He took pictures and exposed the horrible conditions of tenements. And he was a muckraker, one of the biggest muckrakers. All right, Truman Doctrine. This is something we learned at the beginning of the Cold War. We wanted to help out countries that were fighting against communism. So help out with military, some money. And if there was a war where we had a country fighting against communism, the Truman Doctrine, we came in and trying to help that country out. One group that we learned, one of the third parties that we looked at during the Granger movement was the Populist Party. It was led by William Jennings Bryan. It was all about farmers' rights and helping out farmers in the Great Plains, and wanted to change from gold, a standard of gold, to silver. Okay, that would help out the farmers more. All right, some practice questions here. According to the U.S. Constitution, the federal census is used to determine the what? All right, correct answer is 3. Apportionment of members in the House of Representatives. Apportionment just means how are the people going to be divvied out. One result of the War of 1812 was that the United States what? Correct answer is 2. Maintain our independence and our territory. We still stayed the United States, which is good. Radical Republicans in Congress opposed President Abraham Lincoln's plan for Reconstruction because Lincoln what? So why did the radical Republicans, who were more extreme than Lincoln, oppose his plan for Reconstruction before his assassination? All right, the radical Republicans wanted harsh punishments. Lincoln did not, so the correct answer is 2. All right, Lincoln did not want the harsh punishments for the South. He wanted to welcome it back, and the 10% plan would open arms. In this book, How the Other Half Lives, Jacob Riis attempted to what? Publicize or let the public know the living conditions of the poor is correct. In 1957, the Eisenhower Doctrine expanded the principles of the Truman Doctrine by extending Middle East military assistance in order to what? All right, Truman Doctrine, Eisenhower Doctrine have to do with stopping communism. So offset means to, take away communist influence in the region. All right, the populace believes that most of the United States economic problems will be solved by establishing. If you don't know what currency means, it could be a little tough, but currency is the way a country makes money. So that could be either paper money or gold or silver. So the correct answer is 1. All right. So you are doing final review 4 today. We're pretty much doing from the start of industrialization to just before World War I. Okay, we're going to, the whole 3 eyes unit. This is the whole 3 eyes unit. So in your, let's go to this here. In your Ultimate Regents review post, the PowerPoint you want to really focus in on, and this is important if you haven't been doing it. If you need to go back and look for stuff, the PowerPoint you really want to focus on are these 2, immigration, industrialization, and imperialism. Okay, that would be really helpful if you could look through those for your notes and stuff. All right, that's it, guys. I think you're about to hit the weekend, so have a good rest of your weekend. We'll be back Monday and getting ready for your test on Thursday. Thanks.